somebody who we've talked fairly highly of on the show, Tulsi
Yeah.
Gabbard. She was a presidential candidate in 2020 and the one that did bring the most attention to the war issue. However, as we've always said, Tulsi isn't anti war and she has some issues and really does believe in the war on terror and, that terrorism is a problem. However, her response to 9/11, her statement, Will, is truly appalling. For people watching, we have it up here, but if you're just listening, she has this on Facebook. I believe she also put this as a Twitter thread. She says, "Let us never forget that it was the Islamic ideology that inspired the terrorist attacks and declaration of war against America on 9/11. And it is this Islamist ideology that continues to fuel terrorist attacks around the world and is the foundation for the so-called Islamic countries like Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, and Saudi Arabia's discriminatory policies against Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, etc." Will, that was shocking to read that from her, especially on 9/11 when she seemed to, in the past at least, be somebody to understand the importance of taking these opportunities to really push the idea of bringing troops home. But rather, she's saying that we need to continue to fight the wars because this Islamist ideology continues to exist. And I mean, I found this rather disturbing, Will, and honestly, this is the kind of thing that makes it so never support Tulsi again. She clearly doesn't understand this issue. She doesn't understand the blowback, and she's so just unaware of how events have played out in the world over the past few decades. Thinks that like terrorism is an action that's solely linked to Islam. So, Will, I'll let you take on whatever you want here, but this was quite the disturbing statement.
Yeah, I mean, like with Tulsi, there's always kind of been this thing with her where like her whole shtick was always like end the, stop the regime change wars and stop backing the terrorists. Like in Syria, the Obama administration gave a lot of aid and money and stuff to these like, Islamist hardline groups. And she was always good on stuff like that. But she did always kind of have this sort of like terror war rhetoric about radical Islam and kind of that right wing kind of shtick. I guess she was in the military. Some people in the military have that kind of like mentality. However, of course, the statement she came out with on 9/11 was just ridiculous and horrible. Like she could have used this opportunity, like you said, to call for peace, to call to bring troops home, but yet she turned it into this very jingoistic kind of thing. And I think there's evidence that cuts against this idea that Islam in particular like drives people toward suicide or toward suicide terrorism. There's actually work by Robert Pape, I think, Dying to Win, that gets into like suicide terrorism and the causes behind it. And it's not Islam. It's not religion. It's usually foreign occupation is typically the cause of that type of thing. And so that completely cuts against this narrative that Tulsi is trying to back, that, oh, it's Islam driving terrorism. Now, certainly across the Islamic world, there's all kinds of despotic governments and bad regimes. Some of them do use, they justify the bad things they do with the Quran, with Islam. But I think if you'll take a look across a lot of the world, you'll see a lot of despotism, and it's not just confined to Islamic countries. So
Right.
I just think Tulsi was totally off, totally wrong with this statement.
Yeah, one of the things that really upset me here, Will, and I think it goes to show some of Tulsi's shortcomings on the foreign policy issue, is you don't even have to look outside the Middle East to find a completely totalitarian and apartheid regime that
That's right.
that like Israel declares this, it has named itself the Jewish state, like it has a Jewish state law. Like this isn't just saying like, oh, because the government is Jewish we're calling it the Jewish state. Israel proclaims itself to be the Jewish state, and in the Jewish state the Muslim people essentially don't have rights, and so that seems to be a real issue for Tulsi's whole thing here, that is somehow a unique aspect of Islam that people in the Middle East aren't free. I guess I the worst part of it to me really is that she just adopts the complete neocon narrative. I mean, this could have been put out by Dick Cheney, that two planes came out of the clear blue sky on 9/11, hit our buildings, knocked them over, and the Islamic world declared war on the United States because it's a clash of civilizations. They just can't be okay with infidels existing across the Atlantic Ocean, and so they have to come here and kill us. And buying into that is absolutely unacceptable. And we just can't push that. That's the narrative that we have to fight against. And here you had somebody who was one of the better voices on the war issue, and because of that has unfortunately a lot of times, even by libertarians, just kind of like, oh, well, Tulsi's anti-war. No, yeah. She's not anti-war. She's never been. But this is like full neocon here. And again, very disturbing. Anything else on this, Will?
Yeah, I would just say there, I think, are two serious errors here. One is mistaking the general overall cause of terrorism, and like I said, is not religion. And then the second was more specific of mistaking the cause of 9/11 itself, which we kind of have a lot of evidence and stuff to point toward. It was U.S. policies, U.S. occupations and bombings and sanctions of other countries that led to those attacks. So it is really unfortunate Tulsi got this so wrong, and that really just puts on display that, yeah, all along she's really not been that great on this issue.
Yep.